Hi there. I'm a graduating student who's required to do this passion project known as a capstone project. Now, this had to be a project revolving around something I was passionate about, and after spending some time looking at a short list of stuff I was passionate about, I had a very short list. All jokes aside, I did have a few interests, including things like photography, a mild interest in science, and also video editing and technology. Now, since I'm graduating, I already know what I want to do after high school, obviously, because I wouldn't be the smartest idea if I didn't. The thing I want to do after high school is engineering, which is one of the things you could do as a job. Another really important part to that is getting a minor in some computer science or technology subject because it seems fun, and also technology is kind of taking over right now, so it's probably smart. So currently, everything I told you is a jumbled mess. But how do I tie this all together into a final magnum opus project at the climax of my education? Well, here's how. First of all, forget photography and science. Science is such an ambiguous and vague term, and photography is already something I've been able to do at school without having to turn it into a passion project. I want something new. So to explore this potential minor in post-secondary and potentially pick up a new hobby, I figured the best way to do this was build a PC. The most simple and popular thing for both technology enthusiasts and gamers to do. Couldn't wait to get started on this project. However, I have to be honest, I have a really bad history when it comes to working with electrical components, and I was scared something would blow. Like, science was always fun, but I heavily despise it when the teacher pulls out a box full of breadboards, tiny LED lights, resistors, and other random components and tells us to build a circuit. Because half the time, I either forget to add a resistor and burn out a bulb, or I choose the 10 burnt out LED lights in the box full of 11 LEDs. Alright, well that's said and done. But besides building a PC, I wanted to set two other mini goals. The first of which is to set a budget and successfully build a PC within the allowed budget. And the second goal is to enhance and practice my video making skills by editing a video. Well, guess what? You're watching the result of one of my goals. Okay, so the first step I figured was to do some super basic research. What is a PC? PC stands for personal computer. Huh. Well, that makes sense. I figured out that to build a PC, I need a few basic components. The first few parts are the RAM, CPU, GPU, and motherboard, and also the SSD. There are a few other things like a case, fans, but I can worry about that later. Those are just the main ones. Alright, with that out of the way, let's begin in earnest. After doing some basic research, I ran across the holy grail of computer building, PC Part Picker, a user-friendly website designed to sort any and all manufactured PC parts available in the market, sourcing its information from different online retailers and giving you the best available price. Thank God for this website because it also sorts parts by compatibility based on the other parts you choose and displays the statistics of every part in a neat little chart. Now, I had no idea where to start when it came to choosing parts, so I called up my mentor. After a quick exchange, my mentor told me it's probably best to start with a CPU, as what brand the CPU is and what make will determine what parts are compatible for the rest of the build. For most parts, I figured there are two main brands, AMD with their Ryzen series CPUs and Intel. I spent some time watching videos and reading articles comparing and contrasting the two brands and came to a conclusion. Intel makes better performing CPUs than AMD at the highest price range available. However, at the mid to low range price, AMD CPUs can perform just as well. Oh, and also since Intel CPUs have a nasty habit of overheating way quicker than AMD's, and I'm not interested in having to give my PC an ice bath, so I went with AMD, specifically the Ryzen 5 5500, a solid CPU on the cheaper side. Next thing I did was pick a solid GPU. After browsing my options, I found the best budget money per performance GPU to be the Radeon RX 6600, a solid mid-range GPU that many reviewers love due to how solid it can perform for the measly price of around $300. Yeah, I'm going broke after this project. Radeon is an AMD brand GPU, so thankfully it pairs up with my AMD brand CPU, which is very important. I also picked out a lovely standard ATX motherboard. Standard ATX was just the biggest size available. Besides that, I picked out a 512GB SSD, which some might not consider a lot of storage since many SSDs are capable of holding storage in the terabytes. However, my laptop was just over 200GB of storage, so in comparison, I'm not complaining. Another thing I did were pick out dual rank RAM sticks. Dual rank simply means they come in twos instead of one stick. Are there any advantage to dual RAM sticks? Not really. It's pretty negligible, but some places sell them in pairs anyway, so it doesn't make a difference to me as long as it's reasonably priced. Lastly, after picking out all of my main parts, I decided to look into a power supply. My need is just under 400 watts of electricity to power all the parts in my build. However, I decided to go with a 600 watt power supply. Thankfully, even though that's like 200 watts more than what I need, all that overload won't blow my PC to bits, meaning if I want to get better parts that need more power, I have the power to give it. Alright, now I know what to buy. However, when I look back on the parts I wanted to get, they were sold out, and the only other websites that sold them, according to PC Part Picker, were really expensive, and I did not want to spend more money than I had to. So I had to get other parts that were cheaper. After doing some research, thankfully I found some. The only ones that did get more expensive were the motherboard and the RAM sticks, so I found alternatives for those and it's all good. Everything else I just bought as normal and planned. Alright, next order of business was getting my hands on a case. Luckily, I had a friend who could sell me a case for dirt cheap, so while hanging out with them, he brought the case over and I inspected it. And after doing some inspections, it looked like it was in good condition, so I decided to take it home to test. Unfortunately, the PC case was too small to house the motherboard that I got because I didn't check the motherboard sizes until then and didn't realize what they were. So I had to find a new PC case. So how hard could it be? Ha! It's kind of difficult. Looking at the PC prices for the cases, they were kind of expensive. The cheapest ones were just under $100, and they weren't very good, and the most expensive ones reached into the hundreds. So I needed to find an alternative. Thankfully, I have one more friend who happens to have a PC case in storage. I don't know why or how, but he offered to sell it to me. And along with that, he decided to sell some fans too for free as long as I got the case. So that's very fun. After a lot of communication and actually checking with him whether my motherboard would actually fit in the PC case, it looked lovely, so I decided to get it and test it out. In the meantime, my parts were starting to arrive, which is very fun. He also gave me a few spare fans that he had in storage, as I mentioned, for only $60, which is quite the steal. Wonder how much it would cost if I bought a brand new one online. $200? Okay, that's a steal and a half. Thank you, Power of Friendship. In the meantime, my parts were starting to arrive, which is very fun. Now that all my research is done and all my parts have arrived, it's time to build, which is the next phase. My mentor was coming over and helped me build a PC, but for now, he was kind of busy, so I had to do some stuff completely on my own. Based on my research, the best place to start was by assembling the motherboard. Seems easy enough. Just slot in the CPU, slide in the RAM stick, slot in the SSD, and oops, I forgot. There are two kinds of SSDs, NVMe and SATA. SATA are the big floppy disk looking ones, and the NVMe sticks look similar to RAM, so you just slot them in. Sadly, the ones I bought are SATA SSDs, which are cheaper, but I had to wire them separately and couldn't attach them onto the motherboard, which was fine too, because it came with the cable. Whatever the case, I'll do that later and get the rest of it done. So, as you can see, I do have a time lapse just going on in the background. So, yeah. When my mentor arrived, I wanted to check with him if it was good or not, which he did, and he did say it looked good. So, from there, we decided to work on the rest of the PC. My friend who gave me the PC case also gave me a bunch of screws. Unfortunately, the screws were too big, and we didn't have many of the small ones that we actually needed. So in the meantime, my mentor grabbed some screws at Best Buy really quickly that was really close to our house while I was at school. So when I came back, we could just keep going with the build. And when that happened, we decided to attach the GPU at last. And after that, we wired everything to the motherboard and the power supply. Oh, right. Before I forget, I also had to do some cable management, which basically meant just shoving all the wires into the back of the PC case where you can't see it and covering it up with a panel. Yeah, that's about it. Anyways, now to testing. So, plugged in the PC and start recording. And oh, it's not turning on. Did I do something wrong? Why isn't it turning on? Hold up, wait, I think I've seen this video somewhere. Something about this. Okay, I'll switch this on. Plug it in. Okay, it's good. Press it and yes, it works. Alright, that's just the first part. I had to grab some Ethernet cables from storage and connected them to my nearest Ethernet port so I can do the next step, which was installing the drivers and all the other software stuff. Because currently, my computer is a blank slate. It has nothing on it to run. So all I had to do now was install Windows or some other form of operating system and get all the drivers on. Now that I had the Ethernet, I had Wi-Fi too, so that's convenient. Now, after doing some research in my research phase, I found out that Windows was free, thankfully, because I did not want to pay for Windows. There were some other operating systems like Linux and a bunch of other niche ones, but I wasn't familiar with them and I didn't want to risk ruining it. So I just stuck with Windows free version. Alright, after working on the software stuff, that was it. My project was done. And it worked really well. I've been using it consistently ever since I finished it to do a variety of things from homework, video games, and even editing this video. And it's amazing. It works lovely. So, how do I conclude this? Building the PC was a very unique and fun experience that I'll never forget. Thanks to this, I'm seriously considering pursuing a major in robotics or computer science. With a PC, so many options are open to me now that I couldn't do before due to the restrictions of my laptop. Things like video recording and editing are entirely possible now. I could also do things like modeling and animation through software like Blender to create a variety of things. Despite all the problems I faced and all the little hiccups, this project really pushed me out of my comfort zone and was something I was really passionate about through the whole way through. As for the question of whether I met my goals or not, let's look through the list. The biggest goal, working on the PC. Check, that's done. Now for my mini goals, budget for a PC and stick to the budget. Check. Let me just display a picture real quick of all the things I spent and my targeted budget. So yeah. And then my last goal, create and edit a video for my presentation. Check. So well, that sums up about everything. This is my project. In numbers, I would rate this experience and journey a 10 out of 10 would do again. But until next time, thank you for watching.